Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, coders. It's day 10 of 100 Days of Code. We're back on the attack. We're kicking code's butt. So let's get into it and continue with the React tutorial from Maximilian. So, time to kick some butt. Yeah, okay. So what we're doing is we're continuing on to develop our chart.js component here, and this component is literally going to display a chart on our page, so that's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to building a chart. Actually, I quite am, so let's go. Oh, and actually I have to do a shout out this morning. I had some great feedback, guys. Just making sure that's still going there because I got a noise in my earphones. I got some great feedback yesterday, and someone from Twitter got on to me and answered one of my questions from that I was stuck with yesterday. So I was absolutely over the moon. Obviously it was just great to have someone correct my mistakes. That's so valuable. So I'm going to show you the correction I was show you this guy's Twitter and stuff as well, so you can connect with him, because he's clearly a nice guy if he's helping people out. And just to give everybody a bit of encouragement, to say if there's somebody you can assist today, give them a hand, even just give them a smile, because honestly it made my evening. I ran downstairs to my dad so excited. I was like, somebody gave me a hint. So give people some hints, guys. You know, we all need a bit of assistance every now and then, and it was just so great to get that answer. Now I won't be making that same mistake. So here we go, here it is. So Random Dev Hustle is the guy's name on Twitter, at Random Dev Hustle, and I'll be sharing his information in the description box down below, so you can link up with him, because yeah, he's clearly a nice guy. And so the thing that he was showing me is in my expenses, when I was trying to loop over these, and in order to show, when I was trying to loop over these and I was trying to console log this out like 2 days ago, so this was on video, this was on day 8, yeah, on day 8 I was trying to console log out from inside the React JSX, and I was trying to do it from within this map, which was already within this like rendered piece of code. So these curly brackets within the React return statement tell React that we want something complex to happen. It's not just something as simple as a tag that we just want to display. We wanted to do some functionality, so we have these brackets, and I couldn't figure out how to console log in here, so I had to do a few workarounds, and then I realized I did get the console log and realized I didn't have my ID added to my array. So we got there eventually, but I knew there was a much simpler solution and I just wasn't seeing it. So shout out to Random Dev Hustle for your assistance, because that's what I'm here for. That's what you guys are here for. We all want to be better coders and to learn how to code together. So I really appreciate that. And the answer was, how if you want to console log out inside a map function. So you can do it straight after this arrow here. Why does he have an open bracket there? Okay, so you do it after this bracket and you do it like that. Oh my god, it worked. How did I not try that? Oh my god. Expense. Is this working, or expense .id? Okay. So he has an extra curly bracket here, right? So if I do it like this, did I put that in the right place? No, it should be here. Oh, come on, Random Dev Hustle. Expenses.map. Filtered expenses. Okay. So I changed it now to props.item.map. Yeah. Okay. Oh my god, if sees this video and he's going to be like, yeah, you did it wrong again. But let's get to the bottom of this now, because I was trying to figure it out the other day and he was so good to assist me as well and point me in the right direction. So we have our expense content that's mapping through each of the items that are in expense content, taking them one by one, aka each expense, and then I want to console log this out so I can see what's in there. Oh, okay, so this is what Random Dev Hustle has suggested. So I'm going to paste this in first, just so we can see if we can somehow integrate that in the way he has suggested it. So this is the code that he provided. So really, if my loop was up here, then I could do my console log before the return statement. So I still don't know how to do it within a return, within this complex or more complex piece of rendering code that we are rendering. So so I'm going to just have a look and see where else I have a map and just see if I can implement this, just to see it working. So we'll do dot map because there's too many instances of just the word map. So we only have this map, so I have to make it work here, which, you know, I should be able to make it work here. So I don't really want to spend like another half an hour worrying about a console log when we did get to the bottom of it yesterday in another way. We still didn't get to the bottom of the main issue though, like how do we stick a console log in here? I mean, come on, Leanne, this has to be so simple. Console log. Okay, so I'm going to just try this in a few different places like I did yesterday, because so now if I wrap it in these, okay, I'm going to Google it. So console log within return. See, it's not even just within a return, because I know within a return in React. Oh, React Native, there we go. Console. Render, let element equal my element, console log element, return, wrapping, view. Okay, so I'm going to try this other guy's solution on Stack Overflow. And what he says is there's a number of tricks, and I advise that you could do it like this. So this was thanks to at Random Dev Hustle. So thanks so much for interacting and for giving me some assistance, because it's greatly appreciated, and having conversations about this stuff is how we learn. So have a conversation today, you might learn something. You know, that's what we're all trying to do, isn't it? So great. And then I'm just going to come back to Stack Overflow here and copy this particular function. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with that render, to be honest. Render. Then not the variable you are interested in. So okay, can you console log in JSX? I mean, I know you can, you just need to put the curly parentheses, but how to do it? Okay, so I'm going to just show you what I'm looking at, because you know that's helpful. So I found this article. Wow, what just happened there? Sorry for my oh wow, this was not intended. Sorry guys. So oh crap. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna have to fix this obviously. Oh no. Oh, there we go. Magnifier. Get rid of that. Thanks very much. No thanks. Okay, so this is the article that I'm looking at here. So right, so this is the article I'm looking at, and it says, as a coding instructor, I've seen many students trying to do this, and that's that render that I was just going to try and use. So I was going to try and, what I was going to try and do was render the piece of code first and push the logic up into the render, and then return out the render with the logic I wanted to display, and then also the console log. So don't know why this would work, but it seemed like taking it out of the main return body was doing something. So that's why I stuck that in there to give that a go. But we'll just get rid of that for a moment, because I don't even know about render in React yet, so a bit more research is necessary there. But sometimes copying and pasting things work, so you know, and then you can figure it out. So okay, so this will not do what we expected to do apparently from this. So first let's take a look at some solutions which are straightforward, then we'll explain some reasons. Great. So this is the way I would know how to do it. When you're just returning, also render just goes before return like that. You can just do that in React. Okay, cool. I just haven't really used it yet, so yeah. So anyway, so render just goes before return. I need to also do some more research on that. I'll actually write that down just so I can report back to you guys with my findings on render. But and then we have a console log like this. So in a render, you do not need, that's why my render didn't work, because it wasn't wrapping the return. So the render wraps the return, and then you return what you want. So this actually might work, the old one. And then console log, you just console log as normal. Whereas when we're within, he did say that. Oh yeah. Whereas when we're within the return statement, because this is the JSX, we need to add the curly brackets to tell it this is a special bit of code. It's doing something other than just printing straight back onto the screen or just returning static data. So therefore actually we'll give this render another go, and let's have a look. Render. Okay, so let's go back to where we were, and what I'm going to do, okay, let's just, alright, okay, so I'm going to take this curly bracket and close it after the return, because your render should wrap it like that, and then get rid of this return, because that's not our return anymore, and now our code is semantically correct. So that was the mistake there. The render must wrap the return statement. So just because I hadn't really used it, I was like, okay, I'm just getting out of this now before I go down a rabbit hole on camera. But you know, we also need to figure these things out together. So I'll just go back up here for a moment, and so here's our render. So now if we make our element equal to the expense item, let's just give this a whirl. If we make it equal to the expense item, and let's just put all this on one line because it makes me feel less nervous about it in this particular instance. And I'll just wrap so you guys can see what's going on. So this is still on one line. I've just wrapped my code. I have a shortcut plugged in, Alt and X. I think that used to be that might work for you guys. I think, yes, that's the Visual Code Studio shortcut. I just also implemented that on WebStorm, I think, and if not, you can change your key bindings by just going to File. By going to, if you go to CTRL and P, if you go CTRL Shift and P, look guys, I'm going to just forget about telling you about key bindings for a moment. Let's focus on what we're doing here, because I'm not telling you the right thing. So we're back here in our expense list, and we've set our element to the expense item. So that is the expense item now. Oh, that didn't even wrap. So we'll just go View, Word Wrap, Alt and Z. So that didn't even work when I did it before. Okay, so Alt and Z will wrap the text just so we can see everything on the one page. If it's too long, going over the end of your visual space. So now we can see everything, so that's helpful. And what I want to console log is expense.id. And then my wrapping view, and then you just return. Okay, I think this is good. So then element. So now we have our element, which is our expense. We need the map in there, because otherwise how can we get our expense.date? Okay, so basically I've made element equal to this particular thing, and then I'm trying to console log out the expense.id, which I don't think is going to do anything, because we haven't actually got to the stage where each expense, see the way this is grey now, we haven't got to the stage where our expense is being looped, so therefore it doesn't have an individual expense, so we should get an error. So let's just check what's going on. Yeah. Okay, so expense is missing a semicolon. Cool. Okay. Where is it missing a semicolon? A few of the logical places I would expect them to be. Okay. Don't know, I'm just sticking them in. I shouldn't be totally guessing either, but okay, so I'm going to just follow some of the logic that I was going down the road of. So if I get rid of what I've just put in as our element and make this whole thing our element, right? Now I don't know how this is going to work, but let's give it a bash. So if I take all of this and put it as my element, we will have our individual expense, if that's valid. So we have one closing bracket and the second one, okay. And then logically to me, a semicolon should go there. This is giving out, should we have a semicolon here? Where do you want it? 1005, is that like view problem? Like here? Well, that's clearly incorrect. It's picking up some more semantic errors. So this is telling me I need a semicolon, and it's telling me I need it here, but I definitely don't need a semicolon there. Stop the lights. That can't do anything. What? Right, so yeah, view isn't defined. I accept that one there. Neither is element, so we'll just put expense ID. Like that semicolon does not look correct to me, but just because the IDE was telling me to do it, what I was going to say was this is definitely picking up some semantic issues further down the code, and that's just the place where it can tell me this is where I sense the problem is coming from, but that's definitely not the problem. But render is not defined and expense is not defined. Okay, so why am I equaling this twice? Second of all, don't need to do that. That doesn't make any sense. Expense, where did expense come from? It came from the map. It came from the props. Guys, not going to go down a big rabbit hole, I think, although I just don't want to leave things unsolved for you. It's like, you know, there's no point in doing it like that for you guys. If people, because now I know people actually are watching these as well, so like that's shock. Thanks very much, I really appreciate it. So I really hope you are learning something or getting something from it, so thanks a million, much appreciated. So yeah, shout out to Random Dev Hustle anyway for being a good human being and being, but yeah, little beans we all are. So I just want to say thank you to Random Dev Hustle, and maybe just go back on with my project because this is getting messy now, and that's never a good thing. So one way to get rid of all of these sort of changes when you've just been messing about and trying to figure something out, rather than going back and going back and going back, you can just discard your changes. So if I click on this here, that'll just get rid of all those changes in that file. And you know what? I'm going to do it because we've been at this for a while now and progress needs to be made in my mind. So now we're back to the way it was. It's working. We did find out that we hadn't got our expense ID. There is a way to console log out in a map, and if we just go back to that solution and have a quick look at what it was, just so you are aware of this much. So like this. So if we're in a map, right, and we have our expense directly after the opening curly bracket, we can add a console log with no brackets around it if we're before the return. So that's what Random Dev's Hustle suggestion was. And then also just to come back to the content that we found, and I'll explain through this, so this wasn't a totally lost exercise, is when we are trying to console log something out in React, you can place your console log before the return statement. So if you put it before the return and it's not within what's being returned back, the JSX, you can just put console log. You don't need your curly brackets. But then if we are within the return statement, you need to put the curly brackets in there. Oh, he's after doing it even different here. Get fancy and write your own console log statement. Console log equals children. Console log children return false. This properties. Would that work? Let's give this one a whirl. Right, because I actually think this makes sense to me now. So if we do console log, so basically if you're in here you need to use the curly brackets. So if I was to put a console log here, this will work. I'm just not too excuse me, I'm just not 100% how to put it into the more complex parts. So yes, if anyone else does know what I'm doing wrong there, this particular bit is going to get quite long, but yes, please do reach out with any suggestions or any comments, if you see me doing anything that isn't ideal, or you have a better suggestion, because it's so appreciated and we all learn as a result. So thanks a million, guys. So yeah, so we see the way here we have a console log. Normally in just HTML, or you wouldn't have these curly brackets, but because you're in a return statement to JSX, you do have to indicate that this is a console log by putting these parentheses, or that it's a complex piece of code like this here. But so this will come out into our console, but this actually makes sense here. So what we're going to do is declare a constant console log, like so. And I don't know if children is the right thing to put in here, but you're just passing in, this is whatever I want to call it actually, so that's fine. And then yeah, okay, so it's going to console log out the children of where I use the console log. So then if I go console log and log out what was passed into this, okay, the children, and return false, and then try and use, oh, you can't be using, oh, we're not in here yet. So I was thinking, well, you couldn't put one tag directly inside the declaration of another tag, so, but I can put it here, console log. No, still can't, because it's within the map. Right. Okay. So again, back to progress. I don't like leaving it like that, but again, I just don't want to spend all day just racking my own head, and maybe wrecking yours too. So let's get back to coding. So in here, in our chart.js, we're going to just continue on. So we're importing React from React. I mean, and I don't know, maybe it will come to me later as well, because sometimes when you're just trying to figure things out like that, it can come to you after what it was that you were doing wrong. I feel like people will be sitting at home like screaming at the screen, oh, you just need to move it there, you're just missing this, or it's often the way with coding, but a lot of the times it'll just bubble up to the surface, the solution. So don't be afraid to just like move on either, if you know it's something that you don't have to solve, because you can spend all day, and then the longer you stay there, if you're really not making progress, you can just go into a bit of a spiral. So manage your brain. Okay. So we need a chart and also chart bar. So I'm going to go new file, chart bar .js, and we want to make a chart bar, new file .css, and in the chart bar.js we will import our CSS, import chart bar .css, add our semicolon to say, hey ho, this line has finished, and we'll also do the same here. So import chart, yes, chart. No, we're trying to import our CSS here, so we just go chart.css, and that's that. And then we want to also import our chart bar in here, because we'll be using that. So chart bar from, and hopefully you can see the naming convention here, guys. So when we're importing from a CSS file, you just specify the path of the CSS file that's associated with that file. And then when you're importing a component, you don't do it any special way. You just write the name of the component that you're trying to import, and then you add the path where you want to get it from. And you can add these as well, but you don't need them. So just to make you aware of that. If you had like multiple things coming from, say, React, like when we have React and use state, that's when we can use these to tell it that it's a couple of different things that we want from there. So use state will be done by encasing it all in the curly parentheses. So there you go. And then we'll return in here and export default chart. Cool. Oh, equals. Just wondering what was wrong there. So then we're going to pass in each of our bars, which come in as data points, and we want to go through each of these and display them as it. So for each of the data points that's coming in as the props, so we access props dot data points to access the information coming in from the props, which happens to be called data points, or we're calling it data points, and then we're mapping through each of these. And for each of the data points, we're looking at an individual point in each iteration of the map. Each time we go through the map, we're looking at one of those data points. So we just say data point, and then we want to render it as a chart bar. Going on there. So all we've done here is just set up our chart component, which what the chart is going to do is pull in information from the chart bar, and for each of the chart bars it's going to render it and display it as a chart bar. So therefore we get our chart. So that's what this is doing. It's pulling in the information from the chart bar component and displaying each of those bars, which is the chart component itself. So the chart component is comprised of the chart bars, and that's how we get our chart. So we're just setting that up here now. So we're plugging in the different values that we need for our chart here. We have a value, a max value, and a label. And then we can go and populate our chart bar component, which will send over these chart bars to be displayed on our chart. So we're in here now, and we're going to import React first of all, which is taken care of now from React, but still very standard to see this in React files, so it's no harm adding it in. Doesn't do anything anymore. You used to have it, so you will see it, and it will be required in some projects. Yeah. I just wonder, did I export my chart? Okay, so I did. So I also need to export my chart bar. And we will continue. So chart bar props, return div. Okay. So Max was just going through this, explaining what he's doing, and he was like, so that's what we have, a bunch of divs. And I was just like, hey, a bunch of divs. So yeah, so we're going to just make a bunch of divs here, basically. We're going to just make a bunch of divs. So his first class name is actually chart bar. Then we have chart bar inner, which is that div with chart bar fill in here, class name, and chart bar fill. And then at the same level as the chart bar inner, we want the label. So we will put our parentheses and a semicolon. Default is not spelled correctly. Okay, so there we go. As I've told you guys, have a stretch when you're at your desk. Stretch away there. You need a stretch sometimes, all the time. So stretch. Okay. Oh no. So he's come back to the CSS and he's got a load of CSS for these files now, and my bar chart is going to look so strange. without CSS. I mean, the other bits looked strange, but they were just labels. So, I mean, it's not the worst. We can still use it, even though it's not great, but I mean, it's not the worst. But I mean, this bar chart's gonna be whack without CSS. I already feel it in my bones, but we'll continue and we'll have a little look because there's no point in guessing. Although I do know, so. Okay. Okay. So we're just making sure to account for how tall, how much CSS filled is this bar going to be. So if we have a bar chart and 100% of people completed the survey, well then that bar will be at the 100% level, whereas if only 90% completed the survey on the next day, it will need to be at 90. So we're just writing the code now to colour in our bars basically in our bar chart. So this is equal to 0, like it is. So yes, just 0 alone would be an integer, and you can leave that a number that's just declared without the quotes. But seeing as there's the percentage there, it's not an int, it's a string. So we need to add the quotes to denote that that's a string there. And then we have our if stop max is greater than 0. Then we want to fill the bar, and we're going to round off the number, dot round, props, dot value. So we're taking the value, aka that 90% or the 100% or the 10%, however much this particular bar of the chart may be supposed to be being filled in, and we're just calculating that so we can display it in CSS in colour on our particular bar chart. So we multiply by 100. So here we're just getting the percentage. So, and then we'll just add on the percentage sign to display that it is indeed the percent. So that's what we're doing. So because the style is going to be changing dynamically, we add the curly brackets as opposed to just equaling it to something. And style needs an object. Okay, so we have the curly brackets to indicate we're outputting something dynamically and not statically. And then we have the inner curly brackets to tell us that the thing we want to output is an object. That's why we have two. Style needs a JavaScript object as a value. That's what style takes. Okay. Okay. so now to use this bar chart, we're going to add a new file called expenses chart. And we're going to just set it up as always, so import React from React, and then we want to import chart from, and because it's up 2 levels, we need to leave this particular folder to go into another folder. We do the dot dot to say go up a level, chart, and we want the chart, and then we declare it. So props, and just declare this as always. Our React components are declared like a function, which is actually just so great. Like, I really do like React now. I'm getting to learn it. I can't wait until I'm like a bit more versed with console logs, no, with the more complex things, because it's just really cool. I'm enjoying it a lot actually. So, and guys, look, it takes time to get to a stage where you're enjoying it. This stuff will wreck your head for a while. Everything is just practice and time. So, you know, in the beginning you're so excited and you love it, and it's just great fun because you've made a little box or something. And then when you start getting into the actual frameworks and trying to learn a little bit more in depth, you sort of go back to ground zero in a sense. And it can be very frustrating because you're just like, I thought I knew how to make a list, and here I am trying to make a list in Angular or React, and this is just all crazy. But you just have to keep persevering, put in the time. If it's something you genuinely want to learn, which coding is such a good skill. I mean, they're teaching it in schools now. That's how valuable it is. There's a deficit in tech of jobs, so there's lots of jobs, and it's really a skill worth learning, and you can build cool stuff for yourself as well. So, you know, you're sort of independent in a way. And it's a skill that will get you a job if you just keep on upskilling in it. And after, you know, a few years, I had a job after a year I managed to secure my first dev job. Now, I did do a degree in computer science from years ago, but I didn't work in the industry, didn't know coding, and just got into it. And I know people that have just trained themselves and done a small course. There's loads of free courses and all. It's a skill worth learning. So if you're at that beginning stage and it's a bit frustrating, please do persevere. Just set aside the time each day and do even 15 minutes a day, and you'll really start to see incrementally, it does start to click. It does get better, I promise. I know there's so many days where you're just like, am I an idiot? But you're not, and it just takes time and practice to learn any skill. So just stick with it. Okay, it's really, really valuable, worth knowing this skill. So I couldn't think of anything better to be sticking a bit of time into, you know. Okay. So these are the months. February, March, May, September, October, November, and December. And then we will update these. And again, when we're naming things, arrays and stuff, generally they start at 0 in programming, so that's why we've got 11. It's value 11, but it starts at 0, so we've got 12 entries. We just start counting in 0 in a lot of places in coding, so just start counting at 0. It makes logical sense for coding. Oh my god. So he was just explaining something. Oh, Max is the best. I'm telling you guys, like, get his courses. He's amazing. Loads of free stuff on Academy Mind on YouTube from Max. He's the boss. But he just said, oh, we're just going to use something later, so we'll just set it up here and we'll use it later. And then he goes, later is now. And then just like went into using it. Just, I found it really funny, like, we're going to use this later. Then 2 seconds later, later is now. Like, okay, that wasn't very much later, but we're following along, Max. Thanks. Gas. So expense month is equal to. I rewinded the video again, so I'm going to actually hear that again in a moment. So if I start ruffling again, ruffling, who even says that? But if I start laughing, then forgive me, or laugh with me, even better. Laugh with me. So let's later is actually now. He just said it. Oh my god, I was hanging on the edge of my seat too much, so it wasn't as funny as the first time I just got it. So starting at 0. So basically what he's after explaining is that this get month function sorry, I'm crying from like his hilarious jokes. So where it says .get month here, this function, this inbuilt function in JavaScript starts at 0, which is why we've started our own at 0, so we can just match them up nice and easily. But yeah, even arrays start in 0, so like you will see this commonplace in coding. So this is an inbuilt JavaScript method, and that starts at 0. So that's why we have declared our value starting at 0. And he just explained that and said, like, because later we're going to use these to match up with it. And then he goes, later is now, and like just launched into the next line of code, which is this part. Oh, brilliant. He's great. Chart data points. And I've actually reached out to him on like on the internet and stuff before doing his courses, and he's just so nice. So he just seems really nice in his videos, and getting back to you and stuff, saying, oh, thanks, I appreciate that you liked my course. So he's a nice guy. And so knowledgeable. I mean, I'm here for the knowledge, but to get it from a friendly voice, it's really nice. And now we can pass all this into our chart now that we have it. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to just go back and have a look at that. So we've passed in data points here, and the reason we pass them in is because in our chart, that's what we have called each of our points that we're passing into our chart bar. So that's why we then call it out here. when we're actually declaring that we want to use this component, and we pass it in like this because that's the items that we've defined within our chart and the things that we've mapped over and that we're there then plugging into our chart. So that's why we've done it like that. So cool, that's cool. And I'm just going to get rid of some of these things that I don't need for the moment. And I kept the wrong thing. So this is what we're looking at, and continue. Okay, so first of all we just need to go back to our chart and actually calculate the max value, because we don't have that at the moment. So we're going to come up here straight after our function call for our component declaration, and this is where we can do some logic before our return statement, and we will add in total maximum. Dot max. So we could pass in an array of numbers, but what we're going to pass in instead is our data point values. Very good, Max. So what we've done here is we're taking each of our data points, and as a data point itself, it's an object that has different things attached to it. So it's not just the numerical value in the data point. This contains other things. So in order to just get the number and just have it as a number, we want to access the data point of value. So for each of the data points, we want to map over each of them and pull out that number value. So the 90%, the 100%, 20% completion of a survey, whatever it may be that we're trying to display on our bar chart. The way you would have different bars of different levels, and this one will be like 100 and whatever, you know what I mean. Hopefully you know what I mean. So that's what's going on there, and then we pass that into our total maximum so we can get the maximum of the bar chart, which is the maximum value that we have. And this is expecting an what is it expecting? Well, it's not expecting an array anyway. So the data point values was an array of objects, but we need to pass it into the math.max in a different format. So we need to use a spread operator in order to spread out those values. So this is an array of numbers, yeah. So we have an array of 12 values because we have the 12 months. Okay, so Max wants a list of arguments. This Max function, predefined by JavaScript math.max, you can do different math functions. So math.random. Math.random will give you a random number in maths. Math.max will pick out the maximum number for you, and it needs a list of items, so we're going to go ... to spread out that array to give it the list. Whereas if we just had it like this, it's in the wrong format, it won't accept an array. So we need to spread out the data and send in a list instead. So now I'm guessing we're going to put, yeah, so we pass total maximum in as the maximum value now. Okay, so now we can use our expenses chart component in our expenses. So first of all, we need to import it. So I'll get rid of this because that's grey. So that means we're not actually utilizing this anywhere. So I'll just get rid of that. And we're going to use our expenses chart here. I was going to import it, but it should automatically import it for you anyway, so you don't need to do that. Okay. So what's it giving out about? Chart bar is not exported from chart bar. Okay. Oh no. So let's just check that. So this is saying chart bar is not exported from chart bar, but we're in chart bar here, and yes, it is exported. So I'm just going to check all the files I've changed and make sure that in each of these that should have an export, they do. So chart is also exported, because this could be down the line, you know, that this is causing this error. So let's have a look at chart. So we can see it is being exported, but what else are we using in here? We're using chart bar in here, and we have imported it. I'll just get rid of this for a moment. Okay. I was expecting that to prompt me to import this, but it didn't, so we'll just do that again, but no harm in case there was something wrong with that. Import chart bar, and from, so it's in the same folder, yeah, chart bar. Okay, so are we in chart bar? No, we're in chart. Expenses.js unexpected token on line 25. Okay, so it doesn't like this. So let's have a look at our expenses chart, because something is going wrong with our expenses chart as well now. Export default expenses chart. Okay. Oh, so I just need to change first of all actually the loop here. So should be foreign. Okay. So because expenses is an array, not an object, we use for of instead of for in there. Okay, so yeah, so because props.expenses is an array, not an object, we use of. So that's one thing there. And then there's a whole lot of other things. At what point have we fallen over? My time is up as well. I want to leave this on a good leg though. So let's just go a bit logical here. So it's not chart CSS, chart.js. Let's open that file. Let's just get rid of me for a moment. This is using chart bar. Chart bar is imported. our CSS. That should be fine. Everything looks okay. Let's go to the next file, chart bar. So chart bar, we've exported it. We've imported our CSS. We're not using any other components. We have our function definition, which is closing at the correct place. We're just declaring some constants, some variables here. It's a let, it's not actually even a constant, it's a variable, it can change. Then we have an if to check if props.max is greater than 0. And then we're just assigning something to our let, which we're overriding that variable now. And we've done some calculation to get the percentage and it's closing, and then we're returning this block of code, which that all looks good as well. Nothing crazy going on there. So what about our expenses.js? So in here we have our expenses filter. We have imported it. We have our expenses chart. We've imported it, and our expenses list. So expenses chart, just to make sure I didn't spell anything incorrectly. So that all looks okay. So we have our filter, which also looks okay. Okay. So I never passed anything in. And we want to chart our filtered expenses. So let's check that out, because we definitely should have been passing something in anyway, because it was expecting it. So props dot data points dot map is not a function in chart, line 6. So should we be doing that twice? Okay. So I think all that this might be is that I need to pass in props in curly brackets. I mean in just parentheses. So no. Okay guys, look, it's 10 past the hour. I had a blast. I'm going to leave it there and solve these issues in the morning. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a lovely morning, day or afternoon, whatever time you may be watching. And thanks a million for watching. And if you do like this video and you have watched till the end, please do like and subscribe, as that's just awesome. So have a wonderful day. Thanks a million guys. Bye.